Hey everyone, and welcome to Research in Practice, a podcast from the University of Wisconsin Whitewater College of Business and Economics. I'm Praveen Parbotia, director of the DBA program at UW Whitewater. On this show, we go deeper into the research happening at Kobe and the scholars behind it. Each episode features conversations with faculty researchers, doctoral students, and visiting scholars about the ideas they're exploring, the methods they are using, and the real world impact of their work. Because research shouldn't stay in journals. It should inform decisions, it should shape industries, and drive meaningful change. Whether you're a DBA student, academic colleague, industry leader, or simply interested in evidence based practice, this podcast is for you. Let's explore the ideas shaping business today and how they influence practice tomorrow. All right, Aditya. So, welcome to Research in Practice, and it's great to have you here. We've been connected for a long time, Aditya, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So, before we get into your research, just tell us a little bit about your journey, and you're a faculty member here. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you developed your research interest, and also even before how you ended up in Whitewater?
Sure. Thank you, Praveen. This is an awesome opportunity to talk about myself, and I really appreciate your having me on here as a guest. So, I guess I should say that before I got into business, I used to be in engineering. So my bachelor's and my master's are both in engineering, electrical engineering. In my bachelor's, my one of my final projects was control systems for autonomous vehicles. And then in the masters, I did the same thing, but for an underwater vehicle. And as I was doing my masters, I realized I wasn't enjoying it anymore. So I was more interested in what made people act in the ways they act, especially, what makes a person act in an unethical way. And I wanted to dive into that, which is why, I ended up doing a PhD in business.
In
Because,
business, okay.
yes.
And then what was your dissertation about? Can you kind of tell us a little bit about what it was about and how you, I guess, chose the area that you worked on?
Sure. So my dissertation was about moral awareness in entrepreneurs. And the reason so I was more interested in the moral awareness part, but we chose entrepreneurs because around the time I was doing my PhD, entrepreneurship was a booming, you know, topic. And we figured, so there wasn't anything. So it wasn't that I was interested in entrepreneurship. I was more interested in what makes them ethically operate in different ways. So so yeah, that was my dissertation. It was about I did it was a complete dissertation, not like the two essay model we have today, but it was essentially assessing moral awareness of entrepreneurs and comparing them with non-entrepreneurs.
I see. So how have things changed? I mean, when we've known each other for a long time. We
Hmm.
are fortunately connected to the same doctoral program at Washington State University, and I've seen your research evolve, and I'm really impressed with what you're doing. You're not just tackling traditional areas, but I also am very impressed with your ability to engage with, current conversations as well as, contributing to, I think, making research interesting through popular culture as well. So how did that happen? How did you end up saying, now I'm going to look at, leadership from like perspective of dogs and so on? What was that trajectory for you?
All right. Yeah, thanks for that question. And yes, for whoever is listening, me and Praveen, we are academic brothers. We have the
Yes,
same
yeah, yeah.
doctoral dissertation advisor, Dr. John Cullen. Shout out to
Yes.
him if he's listening.
That's right.
So, yeah, that's a great question, Praveen. So, uh, in the early days, I was more focused on publishing things that were, likely to get published according to the the conversations going on in journals and all of that. But then very soon, I mean, three years into that, I discovered that what made me happier was focusing on projects that I was interested in. So ever since, I've been pretty intentional about that. So any topic I tackle, any project I take on, I make sure that it's a topic that I am personally interested in. Otherwise, I would probably get bored. So that's why you see this eclectic range of projects that I've got. And the pop culture part, I throughout my throughout my life, I have always dived deep into pop culture of various kinds, comic books, movies, TV shows, etc. And uh, the ability to do research based off on pop culture, and it gives me two things. One is it allows me to connect research to people who might not be interested in that research, but the pop culture element, it makes them interested. It's because they already know about the pop culture, they can use that to learn more. And leadership is something that really ties in wonderfully with pop culture. And I guess the second thing is, throughout when you're growing up, you have people tell you, "Hey, don't waste your time on that TV show." Then it's
Yeah,
like, "Hey,
yeah, yeah.
it's not a waste of time. That's how this book came about,
Eh,
or that's how this paper came about."
Yeah. So in some ways, I guess maybe you feel like you have the freedom to maybe explore these areas which you weren't doing at the beginning of your career then, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah. And
absolutely.
what elements of pop culture, pop culture is so broad. What elements of pop culture are of interest to you and has influenced your research?
So I've written two books on pop culture. One is on Harry Potter. I'm a huge Harry Potter fan, and I've read the books. I've watched all the movies, but I based my book was Leadership Insights from Wizards and Witches. That one I based it on the books alone because the movies took creative liberties which I didn't really appreciate, because
Okay.
some characters got chopped out and they changed the trajectories of some other characters. So I focused on the book. And then uh, another pop culture IP that I used is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So that's my recent book which came out. And I have two more projects that are still being written. One is on professional wrestling. I've been a huge professional wrestling fan, and in the early days, I remember I used to be a bit shy about expressing that. But I guess as I've become older, I don't care. I'm like, yeah, I'm a professional wrestling expert. What,
Yeah,
you
what
know? And if you look at the state of the world today, it helps to be a professional wrestling fan.
Ah, for sure, for sure. And that's what makes you so, I think, unique and interesting too. So you've worked with, a few of our DBA students, and
Mhm.
we'll come back to the research you're doing, but I want you to kind of share a little bit about, your experiences with working with our DBA students, and how you help them kind of, you know get to some area that's really worthy of research, and some of the best traits you've seen in the students as well.
Sure. So I have worked with more than 6 or 7 DBA students as their primary advisor, and I think the common thread is that with all of the DBA students, I got along really well with them. So if you get along really well with someone, and to me, there has to be a personal connection as well. So something that you can get along with. If there's a person I would not get along with, or if the person wouldn't get along with me, then I don't think we could work together at all. And out of my, can I name DBA students?
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
Okay. So let's see. One of my students is Lavina, and she is super determined. So
Yes, yes.
if you get some, we've sent out so many papers, they get rejected. She doesn't give up. She sends them around, and we turn it around and we send it again. So you do need grit. I think grit and resilience are super important for anybody who's considering a doctoral career, because by the time we're done with our careers, we all have skin like crocodiles, thick skin, like
Yep, yep, yep.
reptilian. Right, you have to, because I just got a rejection today, and I looked at it and I was like, yeah, okay, I'll turn it around. So it stings for a bit, but then you realize you have to send it on, because and so Lavina is one, and then Ross Gundlach, another student of mine. We really connected over our a shared love of dogs, and he was a bomb dog handler and leadership. So dogs and leadership. So his dissertation is about authentic leadership and transformation leadership and calling. So what drives someone who is elite into something that they truly want to do, even though there's no monetary reward. So his dissertation is done, and now we're focusing on trying to get them out as papers. So these are two of my students that I just mentioned, and the reason I mentioned them is that they're fairly recent. So Lavina graduated last year, and Ross graduated
Right.
last year too. So I have more. Should I mention anybody else?
If you want, I mean, if you recall, because you're right, recencies, impacts. But and I saw, I was involved with Lovina's dissertation, and I was also, as director, I was there for Ross's
Mm-hmm.
dissertation, and also just to see him dedicate the dissertation to, I guess it was to the dog, right? Like the
Yes, to
yeah, yeah.
Sergeant Casey.
Yeah, which is, I think two very unique individuals as well that, you
Definitely.
connected well with. But yeah, if you have other people, I
Oh,
think,
yes. So another student I'll mention is Ben Zuge.
yeah, okay.
So in the beginning, I didn't know Ben. He didn't know me, and I was teaching like not a dissertation class, a DBA class. And during class, I made an example. It was, I think we were talking about equity or expectancy theory or one of the two. And I made an example which used one of the most famous or infamous wrestling scandals of all time, the
Okay.
Montreal screw job.
Okay.
I talked about it, and the class was blank. Like nobody understood the example. And I was like, okay, fine. You need to know wrestling. Ben understood it, and his face was all lit up. And we kind of connected after that, and that's how we worked on our project together. The book that
So
I
so
talked about, the
Ben is a
Mhm.
wrestling fan as well
big
then?
time,
Okay.
big time.
I thought you were the only one.
No, Ben
No,
is a
I'm
wrestling
joking.
fan too, and I should say Ben is my co-author on the wrestling book we're writing.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow, that's amazing. So you're kind of pursuing the
Oh, definitely.
relationship and just, also going down the passions that you have, which is,
Absolutely.
really nice.
A dream of mine is that this wrestling book will make it big, and then WWE will give us like a gift. I don't know, booth or something to go to go attend some of
Oh
the
my
live
God.
shows. That would
Yeah,
be so cool.
that would be definitely. So, talking about that, these DBA students,
Mhm,
and I've seen, you've worked with quite a few people and
mhm,
they've finished successfully. And we also know that some people don't finish,
mhm,
and fortunately the DBA program has been, good in terms of the success rate,
mhm,
but we also want everyone to finish if
mhm.
possible. So how did you keep them motivated? How did you? I know Lovina was probably more keeping you motivated, right? But what about the other students? Like how did you kind of keep them on track to eventually finish?
So I did not pressurize anyone. So I told everyone, hey, if it takes you a little longer, it takes you a little longer, but just keep at it. Don't give up. And out of all the students I think I've advised, I think I only had maybe one student, and the doors are not open yet. If you're listening, you can still come back. Your idea was killer. So
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
want to name him, but he'll get the message if he gets it.
If it
His
is
his
okay.
topic was interesting. It's just that I think work and life kind of caught up. So, but we don't have a statute of limitations. So you can come back
That's right.
anytime
Yeah,
and
yeah,
finish your
yeah.
DBA, the dissertation. So yeah, so being supportive and helping them. So if they want to reach out and talk, be available to talk. If they want to share their work, take a look at it and help them refine the work. So yeah, I think being supportive and being patient. I think those are two qualities that help in helping DBA students make it through the process.
Okay.
Also, I think I should mention that the committee that you put together, it should be a committee that likes each other and that they get along well with each other. If you have a committee where you have one person who's a bit, you know, maybe thinks different from everyone else, you will end up with a situation where the dissertation might not finish. So it's important to put together a team you enjoy working with.
Nice, nice. And in many ways, I've reflected also on my experience, being a student of John Cullen, and he was that way. Where
He
he
was
didn't,
exactly that way. I know.
Kyung, my wife, she was talking about the Montessori. John Cullen is using the Montessori approach with us. And the downside of that is, as you say, is if, some people might need kind of the pressure to, get things done, and maybe they don't, progress as well. But many of the people who I think, you succeed because you become self-motivated, right? Like in a tenure track position, that's what you have to do.
Hmm.
No one is going to tell you, hey, you need to publish. You need to wake up and say, let me, I'm excited about this paper. And,
True.
and, and especially when you talk about, rejection, we
Hmm.
know that it's not like an easy task
No,
either,
not at all.
no matter where you're going these days, so also in terms of, your approaches with like working with the students, can you share with the group about how you, because very often students, especially in that first semester, but you see it even during the summer class that you teach, you see students come with, very grandiose ideas,
Hmm.
and we want to make it something that's actually researchable, and we're always saying, the
Yeah,
best dissertation
the
is a
done
done.
dissertation.
So how do you get them to kind of say, okay, this is what you should be looking at?
So, uh, what I tell them is, these grand ideas are great, but how are you going to collect data for that? And I give them the example of I had a grand idea once, and the grand idea was about organizational sabotagers.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
basically, my idea was you have people who join an organization just to sort of get all the secrets and then go tell it. So I remember I'd presented that when I was a doctoral student. I was excited about that. And then they're like, how are you going to collect data for that? And then I was like, yeah, I don't think I can collect data for it. I'm sure you can fake data from it, but it's
Yeah,
not going
yeah.
to be real data. So I bring that example up and I tell them that sometimes your ideas are maybe not conducive for an empirical study, but you could still write a theoretical article out of it. But it might not be an empirical route. So most people want to write an empirical dissertation here. So I tell them if you have grandiose ideas like that, then you're going to limit your own potential for success. Like you're not going to be able to finish that. Collecting data from 100 countries, primary data, something like that,
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
not going to happen. So unless you want to be here in school for 12 years or something, then
That's right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I give them that, I basically bring a bit of realism into it.
Great, great. And so let's get back a little bit to your research. Like I was saying earlier when we started, you have such an eclectic mix, and you're really fascinating. And also, I saw some of the like titles. You clearly spend way too much time on titles.
I'm the
So
title guy. If you
that's
need a
right.
good title,
Yeah,
come to me.
that's right. So titles, but also, I was looking at some of the participation in conversations with like academia as well, like ghost writers or the
Interesting.
nasty, yeah, the nasty. How do you come about these areas, and how do you decide, okay, did you have some bad experience with it, or how do you decide I want to participate in this conversation,
Oh yeah, so the ghosting one it's absolutely based on the personal experience I had. I this person I reached out, we had a conversation about a paper we were going to do, and then the person just stopped responding, and I couldn't figure out. I kept thinking, what happened, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And that happened a couple other times with a few other people. So I just thought, hey, instead of stewing over it, let me write a paper on it. So that's why I wrote a paper. And the version that eventually got published, it's a lot more. So the initial paper which I sent out for review, the editor was like, hey, this is too, this is
It's
it
too
is
much.
too critical. So, tame it back. So I said, okay, sure, I can tame it back. So I think a lot of my research ideas, they kind of come from things I've read or things I've watched or things I've experienced. So I yeah, I think the best research ideas probably come from that. Something where you have a personal take on it or a personal issue on it.
And then you and like I said, you've participated in that, academic discussions of, really interesting areas. But I also saw that you have quite a few business horizons as well, which,
Hmm.
is one of the primary means for us as academics to contribute to research and practice. So how did that come about? Are you using your own research to contribute to the conversations in practice, or what's the process? Why are you also looking at, like Rutgers business and business horizons as
Oh yeah,
well?
absolutely. So yeah, you're right. So those outlets, they're I mean they're meant for academics, but they're also meant for practitioners to be able to read and understand. So the way they're written, it's very different from a typical research article. They're written so that anyone could pick them up and figure out what's being said. And the business horizons, so there was a call for paper, and it looked interesting. So in that one particular call for paper, I actually ended up getting two papers because I had two projects going on, and they both passed the review test. So one was on peace, where we compared Hammer with Musk and how their approaches to peace, like as businessmen. And the other paper was more about how do you communicate peace. How do businesses help in the peace process? So business horizons, I have another paper coming out. It's not out yet, and that one is about business education. How do educational institutes prepare for the new education 5.0, and we actually started off with education 4.0 in that, but then the review process in education 5.0 came in, so we had to update it
Or to that.
fairly quick because it took quite a while. And then the Rutgers one, that one, it was initially intended for a different journal, and we wrote it for that journal. And then the editor kind of changed his mind, so then we had to find a alternate because that one is an interview based paper,
Okay.
and there's not a whole lot of journals that do that. Rutgers does that, and so we tried them out, and we were successful there.
Great, great. Yeah, so, really very interesting areas and coming back to the DBA students now, how have you enjoyed working with people and what do you think we need to do in terms of, making it like, is it running according to what you hope we should be able to achieve?
Absolutely. I have enjoyed working with all the DBA students that I have personally guided, and I've also enjoyed working with the ones whose committees I've served on. I've also enjoyed teaching the DBA students because the DBA class, like sometimes we do both sessions on the same day, so it's 8 hours. It doesn't, I mean, I'm not saying it's not tiring at all. It is tiring. You're quite tired out by the end of the day, but it's not, you don't feel emotionally exhausted. You actually enjoy it because there's a lot of discussion, there's a lot of points that are brought up, and especially when the participation gets going, the time just flies. You start at 8 o'clock in the morning, and the next thing you know, it's 4:30. With and it's gone great. I think teaching the DBA is a lot more work because there's a lot more discussion, a lot more thinking, a lot more talking, but it's also a lot more enjoyable because you're not just reading off of lecture slides or something, and you're not dealing with students who are disengaged. Most of the DBA students I've encountered, they've all been very engaged and eager to learn, even if it's a topic that they're not really ever going to do anything on. So yeah, I've really enjoyed that.
Okay. Aditya, so you talked about like how you were so interested in like studying, like morality and moral awareness and so on. But I see like a very heavy kind of bent towards leadership too. So did you also, were you also interested in leadership, or how did that come about? Because you're very, you've even presented to Fairhaven on like the leadership of from dogs
Yes.
type thing, right? So,
hmm
so what happened here?
So, like I mentioned, my dissertation was on moral awareness in entrepreneurs, and then so actually the data that we bought for that particular dissertation, JC and Dr. An, I should point him out. They actually paid for the data, and we got the
Wow.
data from Qualtrics.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the data was completely useless. It did not work at all. They later on we went back and realized that Qualtrics essentially gave us data from retirees. It wasn't
Oh.
really entrepreneurs, so it didn't really work. But that's fine. After that, my first job was in the leadership department at Gonzaga,
Oh,
and
that's right.
yeah, and
Okay.
at WSU as a graduate student, I had taught an undergrad course in leadership. So I worked in a leadership department for 4 years, and I got involved with the International Leadership Association. And ever since, I've sort of retained my tie with leadership and ethics. So a lot of my work is leadership and ethics. And yes, the Fairhaven talk was about leadership and dogs. That's my second book, which I wrote. And like I said, I'm a huge dog lover, so
Nice,
that's why I
nice.
bonded with Ross in the
Yep,
first
yep.
place.
That's what you were saying, huh? And then, so I was looking at your list of publications and, really varied and, pieces in Nature. But, as management scholars, our dream is all to publish in Academy of Management Review. So congratulations.
Thank you.
You have an article there, and I'm so impressed. Tell us what what's that about? How did you, because you always hear about, Academy of Management Review being so difficult to, to get into. What was that process like for you? Like if you, had to share and especially to contribute to like a dialogue piece.
hmm
So,
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes. So AMR is definitely one of the hardest journals to get into, and I think AMJ also. Um, AMR, the past few years they have this format called dialogue, where you basically write a shorter paper based on another paper that they've published, and it has to be recent. So let's say you publish a paper today, other people have up to 90 days in which they can craft a a like a dialogue piece which either extends the original piece or criticizes the original piece. But it has to do so in a professional way and all that. But it has to be something that elevates the original piece. So I've actually been sending stuff out there for a long time,
okay.
and this is the first time I managed to crack it. But yeah, so it involves a lot of reading. You have to read that original article multiple times to truly understand it, because a lot of this paper that got in, I really enjoyed that article. It was written in a way that was a bit more conversational. Like sometimes it gets really dense, so those articles are a lot harder. You have to read them 20 times to
Yep, yep.
figure out. But this one, I think I had to read maybe 5 times before I thoroughly understood it. And then from what I understood, for those of you listening in, it's an article by Wilmot where he talks about how the hoax metaphor is a perfect metaphor to describe mainstream management theories. So, it's very well done, and I'm not taking away anything from the paper. It's an amazing paper. But I thought that a better metaphor to describe mainstream management theory is kayfabe. And that, of course, comes from my knowledge of professional wrestling. So kayfabe is where people are in character and, they put on a show, they have a gimmick. So, for instance, Hulk Hogan was always the great guy, right? But then sometime he became a heel, so he became a negative character. So people switch characters. So that's what my paper is about. I talked about how everybody knows, the audience that's watching professional wrestling, they know that they're not actually getting beaten up. They know that the Undertaker is not a zombie. They know that Yokozuna, they know he wasn't really Japanese. He was from Hawaii. So,
No.
so there's a lot of, and Kamala, like he wasn't from Uganda. He was from Mississippi. So, there's a lot of the audience believes in it. They know it's happening and they buy into it. So when they see the heel do something villainous, they boo the person. And when they see the babyface struggling to tag his partner or her partner, then they cheer that person on. So yeah. So I use kayfabe to basically make a case that kayfabe is a better metaphor. And
Okay.
yeah, so
And that worked.
and that worked. The
Oh,
editor liked it, and a couple of rounds of revision, and
and
it
it was
it got accepted. So yeah,
yeah, congratulations.
yeah, thank you,
And
thank you.
what I'm hearing from you though is you tried several other times with
Oh,
other
many times.
papers. Okay. And then those ones
Those
were
were
like
like rejected.
rejected. And then I'm thinking like if it gets rejected, there's no you can't go somewhere else with it then, right?
Unfortunately, yeah,
It's just
it's
tailored for that.
a friend of mine, Gordon Schmidt, and we discussed doing a book once and calling it the graveyard of rejected papers.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
there's
yeah.
so many, right? You could
Oh my
publish that
goodness.
easily. Oh,
Wow.
actually, can I do a shout out to a journal? Oh,
Definitely.
okay.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so everyone who's listening, there's a journal called Group and Organization Management. They have a call right now, and it's a call for rejected commentaries. So, if you ever wrote a commentary to a paper and that got rejected, send it to this. It's about that. You can write about why it got rejected, and you know,
Interesting,
I have like
interesting.
75 I can send there. So
Oh,
I have to pick which ones to send.
that's so funny. Yeah, yeah. I guess you and the thing about those things is you are investing as much time, right, to refine something, and then like
Yeah,
we've
you are
worked on
spending
some,
time.
yeah,
Yeah,
we've
yeah.
worked on some call for special issues,
Exactly.
and then
Then it doesn't go
it doesn't.
anywhere,
Yep,
and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
kind of stuck.
That's right, and you spend so much time. So let's see. We've talked about quite a few things, and I think we've covered so many areas. I really like just what you're doing in terms of the DBA students, and I think of our colleagues, you're probably one of the most eclectic mix, which is it's really really interesting. And so in terms of kind of just to some degree closing the loop. So we talked about, what your research journey has been and your work with DBA students and so on. What do you see research that's done well? And then for you, what kind of impact does that look like in terms of what you do?
So,
So good research,
mhm.
what are you kind of interested in seeing in terms of good research? What does that? I guess what do you want to be remembered for as well,
Well, for awesome titles,
Hey,
awesome titles,
that
and
I'm jealous.
if you ever need your title to be remixed,
Then
send it
run
to
it
me.
to yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so for me, good research is research that is easy to understand. There are some articles out there that are so complex and so dense. When I try to read them, I'm like, why did you write this? No, nobody's going to read it, and
Which is 90% of the
a
field,
lot,
by the
a
way.
lot of
Yeah,
them,
yeah, yeah.
and that's unfortunate because by doing that, you're limiting the audience that will actually read your work. You'll read it, and 10 of your friends will read it. They might cite it, but nobody's actually truly read it. It got published somewhere, and it sounds pompous enough. So,
Yeah, yeah,
so,
yeah.
so for me, good research is something that is crystal clear to understand. And can I name like a researcher here?
Oh, definitely.
So there's a business ethicist in Bentley
Okay.
University, Jeffrey Moriarty.
Oh, yes, yes, I've
His
yeah.
work is so awesome. Like
Okay.
anybody can read it, and even if they have no knowledge of ethics or management or anything, they'll read it and they'll understand what the paper is saying. So I like that particular style. So um, yeah. So if
So
good
just
research has to be something that is understandable, and it obviously has to have like ethics in it. So but by that I mean if there is data, it should be real. All the fraud we're dealing with nowadays.
yep, yep, yeah,
So that
yeah,
that does not qualify as good research.
yeah. So
Oh,
amazing.
did you
Yeah.
read about that recently? This
No.
one paper got retracted.
Yes.
And the reason for the retraction is super funny.
What was it?
The author developed a conscience and he wrote to the editor and said, I'm so sorry. I faked the whole paper.
Oh,
It
seriously?
got retracted for
My
that.
goodness.
That was funny.
Yeah, well, it is something for people to actually willingly do that, right?
I know.
So yeah, yeah. But yeah, I think we've covered so much ground, Aditya. I'm really honored to be your colleague. I've really enjoyed, working with you. I think the first time we met was in San Antonio, like at the AOM Academy of Management
No,
conference.
no, we met at Wham.
Oh yeah, at WAM,
The,
yeah.
the Wham where you got the award.
Oh, that's right, that's
So
right.
Montana
Yeah, yeah.
or Oakland, one of the two.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, but
It
but
might have been Oakland, I think.
okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
But
remember.
but what I'm saying is I'm really impressed with what you've done and what you keep doing, and you keep persisting, and so that's, I think, like you said, the first thing you said was grit, and I think you have grit and you don't care about rejections and you keep fighting, and then so thank you for so much for giving me the time. I'm
Yeah, thank you,
very
Praveen.
grateful.
This was really fun.
Yeah, all right. Thank you for joining us on Research and Practice. If this conversation sparked new ideas for your work, your organization, or your research, I encourage you to subscribe and continue the conversation with us. Research and Practice is part of the Warhawk Business Voices podcast network. You can find all episodes and additional resources at uww.edu/Kobe/podcast. That's uwww.edu/COBE/PODCASTS. I'm Pravin Parbotia, and we'll see you next time.